At Christmas, Grandma gave everyone $5 million checks. They laughed and said they were fake. I didn't. And what happened next destroyed my entire family. When I pulled up to Grandma Marjorie's farmhouse in rural Vermont, I felt the usual mix of warmth and anxiety that came with every Hale family Christmas. The house looked beautiful, covered in snow and glowing with soft yellow lights. But the moment I stepped inside, I sensed something different, an unusual stillness beneath the holiday noise. Grandma sat in her favorite rocking chair, wrapped in her red knit shawl. She looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. As everyone settled into the living room, she opened a small wooden box and began handing out envelopes. One for my dad, one for my cousins Riley, Tamsin, and Gage, and one for me. "Merry Christmas," she said softly. "I sold some land. I wanted to share the money with all of you." The room went silent. Then Riley snorted. "A $5 million check? Grandma, come on," he said, waving it around like it was Monopoly money. Tamsin whispered loudly, "She must be confused again." My dad sighed and shook his head. "Mom, you shouldn't joke like this." Gage practically doubled over laughing. But I couldn't laugh. I looked at the check in my hands, my heart tightening. $5 million wasn't a joke you made casually. And even if Grandma was mistaken, she had always been sharp. Sharper than most of the people in the room judging her. I slipped the envelope into my purse, feeling a twist of guilt. What if this was real? What if she needed someone, anyone, to take her seriously? The next morning, I went to the bank. I felt embarrassed even handing the check to the teller. I expected her to chuckle, hand it back, and reassure me that Grandma had simply made a mistake. But that's not what happened. The teller frowned, typed something, paused, then excused herself. She brought back the branch manager, who shook my hand like I was suddenly someone important. "Ms. Carrington," he said, "this check is absolutely valid. The funds are available immediately." My breath caught in my chest. The world seemed to tilt. It was real. All of it. I walked out of the bank in the cold, my boots sinking into the snow as if the ground itself was giving way beneath me. $5 million. My grandmother had actually given every one of us $5 million. And everyone else had laughed in her face. For a moment, I considered calling the family. I imagined their shock, their scrambling, their furious backpedaling. But then I pictured Grandma's expression the night before, calm, observant, almost testing. Maybe this wasn't just a gift. Maybe she wanted to see who believed in her. I slid the receipt into my pocket and whispered, "I believe you, Grandma." I didn't know it yet, but that single decision, trusting her when no one else did, was about to push my family toward a level of betrayal I never imagined. And once it started, there was no stopping it. When I left the bank that day, I felt both excited and scared. I didn't know what to do, so the first person I told was my fiancé, Kenton. I expected him to hug me, celebrate with me, maybe even reassure me that everything would be okay. But the moment I told him the check was real, his whole face changed. He didn't ask how I felt. He didn't say he was happy for me. Instead, he started talking fast, telling me how we should use the money, what he thought was the smartest plan, and why I needed to put everything in a joint account with him. His voice was sharp, almost demanding. I just stared at him, confused. It didn't even feel like I was talking to the man I planned to marry. It felt like I had suddenly become a bank, not a person. Before I could even process his reaction, the news spread through the family. Someone must have seen me at the bank or overheard something, because by evening, my phone was full of messages. At first they sounded excited, but excitement quickly turned into jealousy. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone wanted to know why my check cleared, and theirs didn't. Then the accusations started. Riley said I had obviously tricked Grandma somehow. Tamsin asked if I had been helping Grandma too much lately. Gage told everyone I must have talked Grandma into signing something behind their backs. The three of them pushed the same ugly story, that I had manipulated Grandma for money. Their words hurt more than I expected. These were people I grew up with. People I trusted. But now they looked at me like I was the villain. I went to see Grandma because I needed to understand. When I sat beside her, she held my hand and looked at me with sad eyes. She told me she wasn't confused at all. She had written those checks on purpose. She wanted to see who would appreciate the gift and who would laugh at her. She had noticed how the family treated her for years, how they ignored her until they wanted something. She told me the truth gently. She was sick. She didn't have much time left. And because she had watched how everyone behaved, she wanted me, not the others, to inherit what remained of her estate. She said I had always treated her with respect, not because of money, but because I loved her. I left her house with a heavy heart, realizing everything was about to get worse. The family was already turning ugly, and Grandma's secret would only make them hate me more. When I got home after talking to Grandma, I felt tired and confused. I kept replaying everything in my mind. The check, the bank, my family turning against me, and now Grandma's quiet warning. I just wanted someone to stand by me. But instead, things kept getting worse. That night, Kenton came over. He didn't ask how I was feeling or what Grandma had told me. Instead, he acted like he already knew the next step. He sat beside me on the couch, took my hand, and said we should manage the money jointly. His voice was calm, but something about it felt rehearsed. He talked about trust, marriage, and building a future together. But the whole time, all I heard was him trying to control what wasn't his. I told him no. I didn't raise my voice. I wasn't rude. I simply said I wasn't comfortable mixing something so big with our relationship. The moment I refused, his face tightened. He didn't shout, but the disappointment and anger were clear. He left soon after, saying we needed to rethink our plans. My stomach sank. The next day, I found out something that broke me even more. Kenton had secretly gone to talk to my dad, Bruce. They weren't close. They barely talked unless it was about holidays or birthdays. But suddenly, they were meeting behind my back, discussing options and family rights. I overheard a piece of their conversation when I walked in on them in my dad's kitchen. They didn't notice me right away, and I heard my dad say, "We can convince her. There are ways to make her understand she owes us." My chest went cold. It felt like the two people who should have protected me were teaming up to take something from me, as if I didn't matter at all. Later that week, my cousins invited me to what they called a family meeting. They said it was to clear the air. I wanted to believe them. I wanted peace. So I went. The moment I walked in, I knew it was a trap. Everyone was already seated. My dad, my cousins, even my aunt and uncle. They didn't waste time pretending. They went straight to attacking me. They said I should share the money because it was only fair. They said Grandma was old, so maybe she didn't know what she was doing. Riley even suggested I sign over a portion, for the good of the family. Every word felt like a knife. No one asked how I was coping. No one cared about Grandma's intentions. They only cared about the money. The people who were supposed to love me were now trying to force me into giving them something they didn't respect or earn. I left before I started crying. I didn't want them to see how deeply they had hurt me. When I reached Grandma's house that evening, she looked at me like she already knew everything. She squeezed my hand gently and whispered, "Wait and watch, Leah. Truth always pulls the mask off people." Her words stayed with me, even as my world began to crumble. Grandma's health began to decline faster than anyone expected. Each time I visited her, she seemed a little weaker, but she never complained. She would just hold my hand and talk softly, telling me stories from her childhood or asking about my day. Even when her voice grew faint, she still tried to smile at me. I stayed with her as much as I could, knowing our time together was running out. One quiet morning, the nurse called me. Grandma had passed away peacefully in her sleep. I stood beside her bed, holding her hand for the last time, feeling a deep pain settle in my chest. Even though she had warned me about the family, even though she had prepared me for what was coming, losing her still felt like losing the only person who truly saw me. A week later, the family gathered for the will reading. Everyone arrived dressed in black, but the sadness on their faces didn't feel real. It looked more like impatience, like they were waiting for something they felt they deserved. The lawyer, Mr. Preston, opened a folder and cleared his throat. The room went silent. He started by sharing Grandma's final messages, simple words of love and gratitude. But the moment he mentioned her assets, her house, her remaining land, her stocks, the whole room leaned forward. I felt eyes turn toward me, watching, waiting. Then the lawyer read the part that changed everything. Grandma left it all to me. The entire estate. The land worth $12 million. Her house. Her stocks. Everything she had left. My breath caught, and for a moment I felt lightheaded. I knew she trusted me, but I never imagined she would leave me everything. Before I could process it, the room exploded. My father slammed his hand on the table. "This is impossible. She would never do this unless someone influenced her." Tamsin jumped up, pointing at me. "She got to Grandma first. She must have convinced her to change the will." Gage shouted that it was unfair and demanded the lawyer reread the document. Riley accused me of taking advantage of Grandma while she was sick. Voices overlapped, louder and uglier by the second. No one cared that Grandma had chosen this knowingly. No one cared that she trusted me because I treated her with love, not greed. I sat frozen, my hands shaking. I wanted to defend myself, but no words came out. Their anger felt like a burning wall around me. I looked down, trying not to cry in front of them. In the middle of the chaos, one memory rose in my mind. Grandma's soft voice telling me to wait and watch. She said truth would expose everyone. And now, as I listened to their accusations, I finally understood what she meant. They weren't mourning her. They were mourning the money they didn't get. I stayed silent as their shouting grew louder, knowing Grandma had seen this long before I did. The day after the will reading, everything changed again. My phone started ringing nonstop, emails kept coming, and messages piled up. My family had hired a lawyer and filed a lawsuit, claiming I had forced Grandma to leave everything to me. They said I manipulated her while she was sick, even though I knew I had done nothing wrong. It felt unreal that they could twist the truth so easily. The hardest blow came from Kenton. I thought he would stand by me, but instead, he told me he agreed with my family. He said our engagement was over and demanded that I pay him for the years he wasted with me. I couldn't believe it. The man I trusted most had turned against me. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. I knew I couldn't face this alone. I needed help, someone who could fight for Grandma's wishes and protect me from their lies. That's when I found Vivian Locke, a tough estate attorney known for handling complicated family disputes. From the first meeting, I could tell she was different. She didn't just listen, she understood, and she promised to uncover the truth no matter how messy it was. Vivian started digging into my family's history. What she found shocked me. For decades, my family had taken advantage of Grandma. They had ignored her needs, stolen money, and signed documents without her knowledge. They had treated her like she was invisible, only paying attention when there was something to gain. The evidence was clear. Grandma had chosen me because I had always treated her with respect, kindness, and love. Every phone call, every hidden bank record, every old letter she found proved that I wasn't the one trying to cheat anyone. It was the opposite. I was the only one who had ever cared about her well-being. The more Vivian uncovered, the more I realized how right Grandma had been to trust me and to leave her life's work in my hands. Even with the proof, facing my family in court was terrifying. They screamed, denied, and tried to make me feel guilty, but I wasn't alone anymore. Vivian guided me through every step, showing me that justice wasn't about anger or revenge. It was about protecting what was rightfully mine and honoring Grandma's wishes. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small sense of relief. The fight wasn't over, but I knew I had someone in my corner who believed in the truth, and that gave me strength to face the storm ahead. After the court filings and Kenton leaving, I felt a mix of fear and determination. I knew I had to understand everything about Grandma's property and the money she left me. I couldn't let my family use lies or half-truths to take what wasn't theirs. So, I started looking into the land she had sold. It took some digging, calls, and a few visits to local offices, but I finally found the buyer. Weldon Minerals, a big mining company. They had bought Grandma's property because there was a massive lithium reserve underneath. Lithium was worth a fortune, and it was clear this deal was far bigger than anyone in the family realized. My heart pounded as I read the reports. Grandma hadn't just sold some land. She had set up something that would keep me secure for life. When my family found out the land had such potential, their attitude turned worse. Before, they had only been angry about the $5 million checks. Now, they realized the property could earn millions more in the future. I could feel their greed even through phone calls and messages. Every text I received from them seemed sharper, meaner, filled with threats and demands. Vivian, my attorney, continued to help me. She dug into the land sale details and uncovered something I hadn't expected. Grandma had negotiated future royalties from the mining operation, and she had put them in my name only. That meant every time the company paid for lithium extraction, the money would come straight to me. My family had no claim. No matter how hard they tried, they could not touch it. I sat in my living room staring at the papers, feeling a mix of grief and awe. Grandma had thought of everything. She knew my family couldn't be trusted, and she had carefully made sure I would never need to depend on them. It wasn't just about the money, it was about freedom. Freedom to live my life without fear of betrayal, without manipulation, and without guilt. I realized then that Grandma had left me more than wealth. She had left me security, independence, and the knowledge that she trusted me completely. Every choice she had made, every calculation, had been designed to protect me from the people who had always hurt her, and to protect me from people who might try to hurt me in the same way. I smiled through the tears. Grandma had outsmarted everyone. She had seen the greed, the jealousy, and the dishonesty long before I did. And in the end, she had chosen the person she knew would use her gifts wisely, me. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. Her plan had worked, and I finally understood just how much she had loved me. Things got worse after I started receiving the first royalty payments from the land. My family's greed seemed endless. One night, I got a call from the security company I had hired for Grandma's old house. They caught someone trying to break in. When I rushed over, I was shocked to see Riley, my cousin, sneaking around with a bag in his hand, clearly trying to steal important papers. I confronted him immediately. He looked nervous and angry, but there was no excuse for breaking into my home. I called the police, and within hours, Riley was arrested. Seeing him handcuffed was both painful and satisfying. Painful because he was family, but satisfying because I realized no one, not even him, could touch what Grandma had left me. After that incident, the rest of my family grew bolder. They started sending me threatening messages and letters, saying they would ruin my reputation if I didn't give up the future royalties from the land. They tried to intimidate me, claiming they could make life miserable for me and anyone associated with me. Every phone call, every email, every message felt like pressure to break me down. But I refused. I knew Grandma had left the royalties in my name for a reason, and I wasn't going to give in. Then Kenton reappeared. He said he wanted closure, and at first I considered listening. But as soon as he started talking, I realized he wasn't concerned about us or the relationship. His words were focused on the money. He wanted to figure out how to get a piece of what Grandma had left me. That was the moment I understood he had never loved me. He had only loved the idea of what I could give him. I shut the conversation down quickly and refused to see him again. After everything, I knew I had to protect myself even more. I started documenting every interaction, every threat, every shady conversation. I kept messages, recorded calls when possible, and wrote down everything I observed. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about making sure my family couldn't hurt me or take anything that was rightfully mine. This was the beginning of my fight back. I didn't act recklessly or angrily. I stayed calm and focused. I realized that the truth, evidence, and careful planning would be my weapons. Every move I documented brought me closer to protecting myself fully and preparing for the moment when my family would finally face the consequences of their greed. After the break-in and constant threats, I knew I couldn't just wait for my family to stop. I had to take action. With Vivian's help, I filed countersuits against them for harassment, property damage, and Riley's attempted theft. It wasn't about revenge in the petty sense. It was about protecting myself and making sure no one could hurt me or Grandma's legacy. I needed the law on my side. Vivian dug even deeper. What she found shocked me. Over the years, my family had been quietly taking advantage of Grandma. There were illegal withdrawals from her accounts, signatures forged on documents I had never seen before, and even cases of tax evasion. Every layer of deceit made me feel both angry and sad. They had spent decades hurting Grandma, and now they were trying to hurt me too. We turned over all the evidence to the authorities. I watched as Vivian carefully handed over files, bank statements, emails, and everything we had gathered. It was a long, stressful process, but it felt necessary. I couldn't just sit and let them get away with it. I wanted the truth to come out, even if it meant exposing my own family to serious consequences. Soon, the IRS and state police began investigations into multiple family members. I started receiving calls from agents, letters from investigators, and notices that audits were underway. Every day, it felt like the walls were closing in on them. I didn't feel joy in their trouble, but I felt relief knowing that Grandma's trust in me was not being wasted. Even though I was doing the right thing, I wasn't immune to the emotional toll. I felt torn, sad, and sometimes guilty. These were my family members, after all, and even with all their betrayal, it was hard not to wish for a different outcome. But I reminded myself that Grandma had always seen the truth. She had left me this path because she knew I could handle it, because she knew I would honor her love and trust. I focused on keeping records of everything, responding to legal questions, and staying calm when my family tried to manipulate me again. I learned to separate emotion from action, to stay strong when they tried to provoke me, and to remember why I was doing all this. Every countersuit, every document, every official complaint was a step toward justice, not just for me, but for Grandma. Even in the hardest moments, I felt her presence guiding me. I knew she had planned this carefully, that she had believed in me, and that she wanted me to be safe and independent. That knowledge gave me strength. I wasn't just fighting for money or property. I was protecting her memory, her legacy, and the love she had always given me. And in that fight, I found determination I didn't know I had. The investigations moved faster than I expected. Almost immediately, several family members were charged with fraud, tax crimes, and other financial abuses. Seeing the police and IRS take action felt surreal. I had grown up with these people, trusted them, and yet now they were facing consequences for years of lies and greed. It was a heavy mix of relief and sorrow. Kenton's role in the attempts to manipulate me and take Grandma's money finally caught up with him. News leaked about his involvement in financial coercion, and suddenly, the career he had worked so hard for began to crumble. I didn't celebrate it, but I knew he had chosen money over love, and the consequences were coming for him, just like everyone else who had betrayed Grandma and me. My father was harder to process. He went on social media, making public statements blaming me for taking advantage of Grandma. He tried to rally family and friends to his side, claiming I had manipulated her in her final days. I had to remind myself not to get angry in public. Vivian helped me organize all the evidence proving his abuse of Grandma went back decades. The forged documents, the illegal withdrawals, and the constant neglect. The truth was undeniable, and in the end, it spoke for itself. Even though I could have pressed further, taken more legal action, or even tried to ruin them financially, I decided not to. I refused to give them any more control over my life. Their betrayal had hurt me deeply, and I wasn't about to forgive them, but I also didn't want revenge to define me. I wanted to honor Grandma's memory, not continue a cycle of anger. Choosing not to escalate things felt powerful. It was me taking control of my life. I turned my attention to Grandma's house and the remaining land. Walking through the rooms, I felt the weight of her presence and the years of love she had given me. I started renovations slowly, fixing what was broken, cleaning what was neglected, and making the place feel like home again. Each brushstroke of paint, each repaired window, each planted flower felt like reclaiming safety and peace that I had never truly had before. For the first time in a long while, I felt in control. Grandma had trusted me, left me her legacy, and prepared me for this. I would protect it, not for greed, but for freedom, security, and the memory of the woman who had believed in me when no one else did. Every corner of the house, every acre of land, felt like a promise kept, a life rebuilt on honesty, respect, and love. The chaos of betrayal and greed would no longer touch me here. This was my safe place, and I would keep it that way. The day I received the first royalty payment, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the numbers in disbelief. It was more than I had ever imagined. The money wasn't just life-changing. It was enough to make me completely independent. I could live my life on my own terms, without fear of anyone trying to control me or take what was rightfully mine. For the first time, I felt a sense of true freedom, the kind I had never experienced before Grandma had passed. I decided to send a letter to my family. I wrote carefully, without anger, without insults, just the truth. If you had believed Grandma for one moment, none of this would have happened, I wrote. I sent it knowing they would read it, knowing they would feel the weight of their choices, but I didn't write it to hurt them. I wrote it to close the chapter with honesty and to mark my own boundaries. Even as I celebrated my independence, I thought about how I could honor Grandma's life and wisdom. I didn't want the money she left me to only benefit me. I wanted to help others who were in situations like mine, elderly people abandoned or mistreated by their own families. I created a foundation in her name, offering support, legal advice, and resources for those who had been left alone or betrayed by loved ones. Doing this felt like carrying forward her compassion and strength, turning pain into purpose. Once the foundation was set up, I walked through Grandma's restored home. Every corner told a story. The repairs, the freshly painted walls, the new furniture carefully chosen to keep the warmth she had always given me. I realized then that Grandma hadn't just left me money. She had left me freedom. She had trusted me, prepared me, and protected me from the people who would have held me back. The house was more than a home. It was a symbol of safety, independence, and the life she wanted me to have. I finally understood the full depth of her love. She had seen my heart, believed in my choices, and ensured I would never have to depend on anyone who didn't care for me genuinely. With that knowledge, I felt peace for the first time in years. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to hold grudges or continue the cycle of anger. All that mattered was honoring the one person who had truly loved me, living a life she would be proud of, and using her gift to make the world a little better for others. As I stood in her home, watching the sunlight through the windows and feeling the quiet warmth she had always carried, I knew I was finally free. Free from fear, free from betrayal, and free to live fully. This was the life Grandma had prepared me for, and I would cherish it every day. Do you think I made the right choice by standing up to my family, or should I have given them another chance? Dear family, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more stories like this.